Hey, it's Tess. I thought I'd go live, and today I think I'm going to talk about fear. It's come up a couple times in recent days, and it is something that I had hanging over my head for a long period of time, and I thought I would share, maybe even kind of go back. I've been going back and looking at where my journey started 9 years ago, and how have I kept moving forward, because who I am and where I'm at is very different than what it was 9 years ago. And I'm happy that it's not the same anymore. So I have to just keep moving forward. And as I get started in this, I do have like 7 tips on overcoming fear, but I'll start with a quote. And this is a Nelson Mandela quote, and it's a really good one. And it starts with, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." And that's Nelson Mandela. And I thought, what a beautiful quote, because we all have fear, and there's all the acronyms to undo it, like false evidence appearing real, stuff like, "Oh, you Pendra, good to see you. It's so good to see you. I'm doing great, and I hope you're doing great too. I see others on it, just don't know who it is, so thank you for being here." But Nelson Mandela, we all know that story, and that's an amazing quote. And he, I don't know the exact quoting of the story, but basically he was in jail for all those years, and they said, "How do you stay positive?" And he held no grudges. He just took everything as it happened and kept moving forward. And I think that speaks so many volumes to the type of person. And I don't have to tell you the type of person we all know, but we have to learn to stop looking inside and just push outside and keep moving forward. Not look backwards, but just keep in the current moment, taking steps that'll help tomorrow. And I know it's not always easy, and it hasn't always been easy for me, and there are still times that I kind of get stuck in it, but I just keep trying to move. And I had something happen with one of my littles today, and it kind of made me remember, we all have those moments in life where we have something we have to overcome, and if we keep pushing through, it turns into something amazing. I'm not going to say it's a beautiful journey the whole way, but you find that it brings you someplace different. And I think that's a benefit to all of us. So I thought that because a couple of people today reached out to me about fear, and I can't tell you that I didn't stall many times in my life because of fear. And sometimes I got to kind of think about what's the worst that's ever happened. So maybe something happened that would be embarrassing, but if it's embarrassing for a moment, but it changes things for a lifetime, who cares about a moment of embarrassment? And I'm just thinking of like little things, and I joke, and it recently came up like, I'm the one that got stuck on the zip line in Sundance a few years ago. But that's not the only thing that happened in Sundance. I went swimming with the fishes when I went fly fishing. Do I regret any of that? No. Because I got to do things that I hadn't been doing before, and it helped me to look at things in a different way. So I think that this idea of fear, and again, it came up a couple of times today, so I looked up articles on it, and the first thing it says is that there are 7 skills to eliminate fear. And the first one is to learn to trust yourself. And it says, trust that you will make good decisions. Trust that you'll research and learn what you can. Know that if you make a mistake, you'll course correct and just keep moving forward. And I think that was probably the hardest one for me. I worked in such a rigid environment that course correcting was kind of discouraged. They wanted absolutes before anybody moved forward, and that's hard to do sometimes. But this new life I'm in, I have to be less rigid and more mobile. And I think that that's a good thing, because I even had a quote that I posted today about we can't ask people to live the life that people lived 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And I think that's so important, because we get caught up in what was instead of recognizing and moving into what will be. I think often about my grandmother. My grandmother lived on a farm. She was born on a farm. A couple of my aunts were born on a farm. I think my mom was the first one not born on the farm. But their life then was horseback. There were no TVs. They moved up to the city. They moved from a 140-acre farm that they ran to Metro Detroit, working in cars and big hospital systems, things that they didn't have when they lived in the South. So they had to make some big changes. And I can remember that my grandma held on through Y2K. She had it in her head, if the world flipped on its axis at the Y2K, she wanted to see it. But it didn't turn on its axis and things kept moving forward. But what it makes me think about is, what would you think today? Because Y2K is nothing. I mean, Y2K is something we think about that was 24, almost 25 years ago. We're so much further past that. I think about my aunt. My aunt was one of the original people in the late 60s that was working on computer systems. And it's kind of interesting because Malcolm Gladwell did a book, and he was talking about how computers were going between Ann Arbor and someplace in Plymouth, and only to find out later that's where my aunt worked. She passed away very young, but one of her bosses told us she was in top level security clearance working in that area. So I found articles about that period of time where she worked there. But what she knew were these big mainframe computers that were put in all these rooms, and now we carry around a laptop. I mean, when I think about the day that I'm called back home and I sit with them and tell them what it was like, what they saw the beginning of and what it turned into, what would happen if somebody hadn't beat their fear and pushed through it? It would be such a huge loss. So many things that we see and experience today, even the idea of flying and the idea of traveling and working remotely and working with people from all throughout the world. Yes, there's some drawbacks, but there's also a lot of benefits. And the life keeps changing. And I think we have to keep changing with it. It's not always easy. I know it's not always easy, but if we're going to be alive, I think it's necessary. So number one was learn to trust yourself, trust that you'll make good decisions. And if a decision isn't the right one, that you'll adjust and just keep moving forward. The number two is take ownership of your life. You're taking purposeful action and you're not reacting to events. And that is something I've always liked. I always preferred to be proactive than reactive, and depending on the environment you worked in, some environments you can be proactive, some environments you have to be reactive, but putting the skills together and just understanding that it's not always going to be perfect. You're going to have to take steps, learn along the way, and keep moving forward. So trust yourself, take ownership, and know that you might have to learn something, you might have to course correct, you might have to redo something, you just keep moving forward. The third one is identify the components of your fear. Now, this is a good one, and this will take some deep thought to figure out, but it talks about if you're identifying the components of your fear, is it that you fear rejection? Do you fear failure? What are the reasons behind the fear? And I you know what, I think I feared failure. I like things to go smoothly. I like to put the nice bow on stuff. And maybe rejection is in there with it, but I think failure, because I always like things to, but that's kind of my background. I like things to get taken care of and move forward. I don't like things open forever and a day. I like to, if possible, close them up and move on to the next thing. Because I think I found that if you leave something open too long, you revisit it 15, 20 times and you don't take the forward motion. But each person and each job and each situation is going to be a little bit different. So trust yourself, take ownership, know that you're going to have to take some steps, actions, adjust, learn, identify what it is you fear. Is it rejection? Is it failure? And if you understand that, it'll help you to keep pushing forward. And then it says, neutralize the above components. Some of these articles are kind of funny. Know and trust that one of the things that happen to you, any of these things that happen to you, you can deal with them. Both all and Dexter talking about all the snakes, and he's right. There's a lot of snakes out there, so you got to learn to dodge them. And sometimes, and maybe that's a good tool too. When you're neutralizing your components or the things you're facing, you have to identify too. Is it somebody you want to go head on with, or is it somebody that you have to take another detour or work around? And I often think about this, and it's really funny. But earlier in my career, I've always wanted to include people. That's just my personality. That's my background. And I remember when I was earlier in my career, the chief accounting officer, they have different tiers like CFO and then the CAO over the top of that and things like that. So the one called me in and he goes, I got a problem. And I'm like, what? And he said, none of the team out there likes this one particular guy. Can you help me get him included at the next lunch? And I said, and like, I'll do it. Give me some time. And so I sat back and I thought about it for a while. And I'm like, how am I going to pull this off? Because they're absolutely rigid and nobody's going to move forward. Well, I sleep on things, and then God gives me a message. When he gives me a message, I just listen and I go carry it out. Well, this one particular time that I was trying to get somebody included, I woke up and I'm like, oh, the easy answer is go to the people that are neutral. When you get buy-in, you go to the person that is absolutely against it as the last person in. So that's kind of what I did. And within a week, I had everybody on board to include this person. Because in all honesty, in a work environment, you don't even have to like them, but you should include people. That's a childish game that shouldn't be going on in an office. But I remember when everything worked out, my boss called me in and he goes, how'd you do that? And I told him, he goes, why didn't I think of that? And I'm like, that's what you got me for. But it was just a case of approaching it. I had to look at it and go, what's the least painful approach? Because it was just one of those difficult situations. I don't know what went down, but whatever it was, everybody was rigid. Nobody was willing to bend, and you just had to find a way around it. And I did have a boss tell me once that I could walk somebody off around a bush and shove them off a cliff, and they wouldn't know it. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be known for that, but it's always been running funny joke. So trust yourself. Take ownership. There are things that you can change, things you can't. If you can change it, change it. If you can't, adjust your path. Identify what you fear. Is it rejection? Is it failure? So that you can identify it and take steps. And then neutralize any of the above that you can. And then it says, build your self-esteem. And I think that's a really important one. I'm going to pull out my tutoring cards. I have not done this in probably 15 years, but there's a special little one that's really, really close to me, and I talked to her today, and I know I can help her, so I'm going to. And I think it made me remember self-esteem, because I know a spirited little one who I saw something dampen the light a little bit, and I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen, because self-esteem is something that we come out of the gate with, but through things that happen in life, it disappears. And I, as well as everybody else, had my period in time where I lost my self-esteem. And it's hard, to get it back. So if we're dealing with children, if we can find an opportunity to help them hold on to it longer, or help them to battle it when people come at them, then that's one of the best gifts we can give. So I'm dusting off those cards and we'll get to work on it. But there's so many smart people in this world, and a few little steps and a hand reached out in friendship or in help and guiding is well received, and it's worth it in the end. It says the next thing is, know what you can learn, whatever you need to learn, know what you can learn. I don't like the way this sentence is written, so I'm just going to say it my way. Learn whatever you can so that you can succeed, and use the opportunity to learn to overcome the things you're afraid of. I have a fear, and anybody who's been around this probably knows it, because I've already challenged a bunch of people within money school to run a half marathon with me in Disney. And the reason that's a fear for me, and it's a silly thing, but I know it's a fear for me, is I was training for a half marathon. I was 2 weeks out from a half marathon. I was ready to roll. There was going to be no problems. I was so confident in it. I got to like a week before, went into the doctors. They pulled some medical records and instantly pulled me off of it. I ended up with emergency surgery, and I've never gotten back to it. And it's been a number of years. So now it's like, okay, I have to get back to that, because it was always a goal. It was always something I wanted to do. So now what I've started doing is I actually run in the pool at the gym. And I'm like, I'll just keep doing things. I'm doing light jogging outside, but I started actually running in the gym, and I just got earphones so that I can have some cadence when I'm doing it. But just find ways to overcome it and keep pushing through it. And it's like I said, another goal. Instead of 8,000 steps by like about 8 a.m., I want to do 10,000 by the end of this year. And I've hit 9,000 a couple days this week, so I don't think that's going to be too far off. But you look for the things that you can move forward with. Know that you can learn to overcome the things that are blocks for you. And try to find the reason why it's a block. I kept setting this goal out there, and I keep struggling with it, and I'm like, that's why, because it got pulled at the very last minute, and I need to close that chapter. And when I close that chapter, it'll no longer be an issue. I'm thinking to myself, why do I think I can't do it when I rode 300 miles in 3 days on a bicycle twice? I've done that twice in my life. I can do this. I've got a block that's unrelated that I have to get rid of. And then it says, know and believe at your very core that this can be done. And that's where that's that fight. I do a lot of mantras, like, I'll just say, and when I'm like running and jogging in the pool, I'll say every day, and this is a Tony Robbins thing, every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day and every way I'm getting faster and faster. So instead of bless their hearts, there's a lot of people at certain times really early in the morning that come into the pool. Some of them it's social hour, but that isn't social hour for me. So I'll like say hello to them and I'll say, okay, I'm going to be saying mantras. So if it looks like I'm talking to you, I'm just saying mantras. But the mantras actually, if I say them fast enough, it's part of a cadence. And that's why I actually got the headphones that I can swim with, because I want to work on cadence. But it's looking for the tools. And what I've found through this process, through the lockdown, is that prior to lockdown, my educational resources were all university, getting a degree, getting a second degree. You know, at one time I wanted to be an attorney, so I have really like one class short of my associates in law. But then it turned out to be management law and accounting, because insurance accounting grabbed me when I was young. And they warned me it would never let go, and it's true. It never lets go. I still hear from people to this day saying, are you ready to come back yet? But I think that that's what you have to do, is just keep moving forward, find the things to move forward. And I don't know what it was today, but a couple of people reached out to me about fear. And I thought, I lived in fear for a very long time, and I'm not fearful now, not like I once was. And I feared everything. I kind of was groomed in that environment. I was raised in that environment, and I feared taking chances. I always had a gut desire to do more, but I was always afraid to do it. So kind of going over those 7 steps really quick again. Trust yourself. Know that you can make good decisions. And if a decision goes awry, you just adjust. Take ownership. You know that you can take purposeful action. You know you can react to the events, and you know you can adjust and just keep moving forward. It's almost like that 3 feet from goal thing. If you get somewhere and it's not working, just find another avenue and keep pushing forward. Identify the components you fear. Is it rejection? Is it failure? Identify it, and then I often think of it dropping into a river and going down the river. I kind of send it off with good wishes. Here you go. Drop it in the water and let it go. The next one is neutralize the components. Look for mentors, look for coaches, look for learning, anything to kind of help you push forward on that. Build your self-esteem. I think self-esteem is a hard one. For self-esteem, I use I am affirmations, mantras, and meditations, and journaling. I actually journal, and I have affirmations that I write every single day. And I do that because I have monkey brain, and if I let this brain say what it thinks, sometimes it does not say the things that I would ever say to another person, so I can't say it to myself. Then it says, believe at your very core that what you're working on can be done. It may adjust. It may look a little bit slightly different when you get to the end of it, but just keep adjusting. And that's probably one of the things that was hard for me, but I do it a lot more frequently with a lot less judgment now than I did in the past. When I first started down this avenue, even with Chris Nagel, there was all kinds of training, like 10-10 training. Well, that was stock market. And I'm like, yeah, this probably isn't where I want to go right now. Then there was there all kinds of training. And I think there's probably 1 or 2 trainings that they offer that I haven't taken. I've taken everything else. And I got to a point where I'm like, I understand and I recognize that there's no amount of training that I've taken in the past couple of years that has even come close to what I spent to go to college. So this education is never wasted. If it's one thing that I got out of it, it will come up somewhere down the line. So when you start looking at educational opportunities right now, and you start to think that they're too costly, I'm going to tell you that as much as I've trained in the past probably 4 or 5 years, I probably haven't spent 20% of what I spent to go to universities. And that degree, while it was business, accounting, law, and management, the reason it was degree like that is a general business type degree is because I got sucked into the accounting with the insurance department, thought I wanted to be an attorney, and then turned it into management because that's just how it fell out. Insurance accounting is a specialty. It's a different type of accounting that's not done anywhere else. And once I got into it, I was good at it, and so they kept seeking me out for it. So I think that, I don't know why fear has come up so much to me today, but Know that there's plenty of things to come through it. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to network. Don't be afraid to find coaches and mentors. Let yourself have an opportunity to do and live life differently. Here's our last quote before I sign off. And actually, if I can see that Nelson Mandela one, I'll read that again too, because that's a really, really good quote. So here's the Nelson Mandela quote. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he that conquers that fear. And that's Nelson Mandela. And then the last quote is, being aware of your fear is smart. Overcoming it is the mark of a successful person. So that's just what I wanted to share today. For some reason, I've had a couple people reach out to me about fear. And I have lived in fear many times in my life, but life is a lot more fun when you go, so if I fall down, I'll just get up and keep moving. It makes it exciting to know that tomorrow you can get up and nobody cares if you fell. Nobody cares. Actually, they'll reach out a hand if you're desperate to pick it up, or they'll just kind of wait by the sidelines and see you pull yourself together and move on. We don't have to fear failure. We can just know that it's simply an opportunity to learn to move forward. So thank you guys. Have a beautiful day. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.